Hey guys, it's Madison, and in this video I'm going to be once again attempting to do a language challenge, and once again this challenge is partially being hosted by Torii Languages, so thank you Joe for once again putting out a fun challenge. When I first saw that this challenge was a screen time related challenge, I was a little less than excited because I don't personally think I have a huge issue with screen time. I'm definitely on screens like all day, every day, so I guess maybe I do. But honestly, a big chunk of that is for my work. But then also when I get home from work, I need to kind of relax. A lot of my relaxation methods are also through screens. And so I'm not really able to cut back on a lot of that because I definitely can't reduce my work screen time. And then I also don't want to reduce my fun detox after work screen time because that's an important part of my day. And so there's not really many areas that I necessarily want to cut down on screen time. I think often when people try to cut down on their screen time, they're actually talking mostly about social media, which I don't really do much. I do like almost no social media. And so since I don't really do any social media, I can't really base this screen time challenge around my social media time because that would be almost non-existent. And so what I'm probably gonna do instead is base it around my phone game time because I do spend probably a bit too much time every day on kind of mindless, dumb games on my phone, either while I'm watching YouTube videos or while I'm waiting for the bus or while I'm eating, or just when I'm sitting around kind of procrastinating on other things that I need to do. But yeah, I do a couple of hours of games probably every single day, which is probably a bit too much. And so I'm going to be organizing this challenge probably around that. Honestly, I meant to be a lot more prepared and like have some more like thought out ideas of what I could do during this challenge, but then I didn't do that. So I'm kind of going in just shrugging my shoulders and kind of figuring out what I'm doing along the way. But there's a couple ways that I could set this challenge up. I think what I'm going to do, at least for today, I'll see how I feel about it like going into the rest of the week, but I think I'm gonna look at like last week's Monday's game time and set that as my goal for today's Korean or whatever language studying time. I have not looked at that number yet. I'll look at it later. Honestly, today is kind of a crazy day anyway, so I'm probably going to achieve that number without trying too hard because number one, I have my Korean class in a few hours and that is an hour and a half. And then also for that class, one of the optional parts of the homework was writing a little like essay about our last unit's topic, and I forgot to do it on the weekend, and so I'm about to kind of hurriedly try to throw together an essay and send that off to the teacher. And so that'll probably also take a bit of time. So between the essay, the other kind of review homework that I haven't done yet either, and then the class time, that'll probably take up a huge, chunk, if not all of the required time for today's part of the challenge. And so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and jump into that class prep now. I really wanted to work on the essay over the weekend so I would have plenty of time to kind of review in this topic prep book, the kind of writing section, advice for essays and stuff, so I can kind of use this essay as practice for the topic, which I'm taking later this year. I do have a couple hours before class, so hopefully I can go through, skim some sections of this book to remind myself of some useful phrases for essays, write that essay, send it off to the teacher, and then work on the homework, take the class. Again, I'm feeling a bit stressed that I let this all until the couple hours before class, but I am a seasoned procrastinator, so I believe in myself that I can get it done. And again, this is optional class, optional homework and stuff, so it's not a big deal if I don't finish it or don't produce the highest quality of work, but I am going to try, obviously, and write the best essay I can. So enough rambling from me for this intro. I'm gonna go ahead and jump into that essay writing now. I will check in probably after the whole class.
다시 여름이 온 것 같아요. 아, 너무 더워요.
그러니까요.
여기서부터 한번 시작을 해보도록 하겠습니다. 여러분은 워크북을 다 공부를 하신 것 같고요. 네, 여기서 확인을 해볼게요.
All right, so a quick checkup on what all I got accomplished yesterday. So by the time I just finished the essay by itself, over an hour had passed, and then by the time you added in the other homework I had and the hour-and-a-half long class, by the time I finished that class, I already had 3 hours and 15 minutes of active Korean studying stuff. And then after I finished that class, I went back on my phone and checked to see how much game screen time I had done last Monday, and it was actually only 2 hours and 21 minutes. So I was a bit of an overachiever yesterday just by the nature of all the things that I had to do in Korean, regardless of this challenge. But originally I was thinking that this challenge would mostly centered around reading activities because, like I've mentioned in recent videos, I'm really hoping to amp up my Korean reading by quite a bit this fall. And so these days I'm trying to read a little bit in Korean every single day. And so I decided that during this challenge, at least 1 hour of my active studying time every single day will be in reading activities. So after that class, still, even though I already had over 3 hours of active studying, I finished up a novel I was reading. Finishing that novel took 56 minutes, and I am trying to get at least an hour of reading every single day. And so I ended up reading a bit of webtoons as well, which brought up my total for the day of 4 hours and 38 minutes. And that was all active time as well. So yeah, because of that class and all of my procrastinated homework and essay writing that I had to do, it ended up kind of coincidentally being a very busy Korean day. Today, on the other hand, is looking like it's going to be not quite as productive of a day just because I was really tired when I got home from work, and so I took a nap that ended up taking a couple hours on accident, and so it's now already almost 5:30 in the evening and I've done nothing Korean related so far, so I have to go ahead and get on that. I looked at my game screen time from last Tuesday and that was 2 hours and 47 minutes, so that's how much active studying I need to do. I don't know if I mentioned this so far, but I've decided to put the screen time from games as the active goal for the day. If I overachieve, that's fine. And if I do passive stuff as well, that's fine, but I don't want to count that passive stuff towards screen time if possible. So today's goal, like I said, 2 hours and 47 minutes. Also, like I just said, I want to have at least an hour of that be reading based, so I'm probably gonna go ahead and start out with some reading activities before I get tired again because I find it hard to focus on reading when I'm tired. I'm probably gonna do a mix of novel reading and webtoon reading once again. I want to primarily focus on novel reading for the sake of my learning, just because there's a lot more words in novels because they describe all the scenery and expressions and all that stuff as well, whereas webtoons show that with visuals, and so there's less of that kind of vocabulary in webtoons. But the webtoon that I'm reading just ended yesterday, like the last episode came out yesterday, and I know that on Naver Webtoons they will eventually remove that webtoon from being available for free all the time, and so before that cutoff date comes and they remove it from free access, I want to go ahead and finish reading it, and I have like 70 more episodes to go, and so I'm not sure how much longer is left before they put it behind that paywall, but I do want to actively work towards reading that every single day this week to get closer to finishing it so I don't have to lose access suddenly to the story, because I do like the story on there. But as far as the actual learning goals, the novel is definitely a higher level reading experience, and so that is my primary focus still. Beyond those two things, I think I'm going to make today a news-focused activity day for the pure reason that News Day Tuesday is a fun thing to say. I often make classroom activities called News Day Tuesday as well, just because I'm a nerd that likes silly rhyming things like that. And so I'm gonna make today my own little News Day Tuesday. So after I finish that reading stuff, the different news activities that I can do is the News in Korean textbook that I have, as well as breaking down some news segments on YouTube as well, like I have done in the past. If those activities don't get me up to 2 hours and 47 minutes, which they might, then I might add on some Japanese news reading as well. Between all those activities, it should get me up to the time. If not, I'll just throw some extra activities in there until I get to that requirement.
猫無料で電車に乗る
Hello again from a very wet and rainy Wednesday. It's been very dark and gloomy and wet all day, and so yeah, not the best of weather days today. Yesterday I managed to hit my goal, although I will say it was a struggle to find motivation to accomplish all those active study tasks to hit the goal, but I did manage to hit it and actually beat it by 20-ish minutes, and so that's good. Today, totally honest, I'm feeling even less motivation. I do not feel like doing anything right now other than crawling up in bed and like taking another nap. I already took one nap today, but I'm still so tired and don't feel like doing anything. But unfortunately, I do have things to do today. So yeah, my goal for today, I don't remember the exact number because I didn't write it down on my little Google Sheets yet, but I believe it was around 2 hours and 49 minutes. Something very similar to yesterday's number. And yeah, while it's unfortunate that I don't have any motivation, thankfully today is a Korean class day. And so by the time I do my Korean homework and then take my class, I should be close to 2 hours anyways. And then I do want to have that hour of reading that I'm doing every day right now. And so that by itself should put me ahead of my goal. And so I'm just gonna do that bare minimum and then do nothing for the rest of the day probably, unless I magically find motivation in the meantime, but probably not. So yeah, that's my goal for today. Just skate through, do the bare minimum, and then I'll probably see you guys tomorrow.
안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
네, 반갑습니다. 이틀 만에 반갑습니다.
제가 들국화 좋아하는 거 어떻게 알았어요?
우빈 씨가 찍은 사진에 많이 나오잖아요.
그러네요.
안녕하세요.
안녕하세요. 친구들 저한테 많이 말해요. 조심 말좀 그래? 저도 말을 잘했어요. 제가 이렇게 있어요?
네, 친구랑 같이 얘기하다가 누군지 알고
네요. 아무 얘기 있으세요? 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
Alright, so yesterday I did manage to successfully complete my time, even though my motivation didn't necessarily increase throughout the night. Thankfully, the basic tasks that I had to do that day got me to where I needed to be time-wise between the Korean class that I was scheduled to take and then also the hour of reading that I'm trying to do every night. Basically, those two things, along with a couple of other tiny small things, pushed me to the time that I needed. So yeah, barely got through yesterday. And then as far as today, I took a look at how much time I need to do for Thursday based on last Thursday's mindless games screen time on my phone, and it is 4 hours. So, oh my God, I'm not sure if I'll be able to successfully do that today just because it's already almost 6:15 in the evening, and that would mean I'd have to basically study straight with no breaks for the rest of the night. And normally I'm a take lots of breaks kind of person, so not sure how successful I'll be today, but we shall see how it goes. I'm struggling to even think of enough activities that would get me to 4 hours because normally the activities that I do are more like 20 or 30 minutes long, and so I'm gonna need like 8 different things to do in order to get to 4 hours, and I'm kind of struggling to think of that many things to do. But some ideas that I do have are cracking back open my topic study book and kind of reviewing some model essays. I also have 2 new reading-based textbooks that I want to crack open and try for the first time. I also want to continue to do my hour of fiction reading, so novel or webtoon or a mix of the 2 things there. And then today I can also throw in a few Japanese or Mandarin things perhaps. And yeah, that's really all the ideas that I have. So hopefully those things can get me up to 4 hours. Yeah, I will check back in with you guys tomorrow to see whether or not I was successful today. All right, so everything I said I was going to accomplish yesterday, you can basically just totally disregard that entire section of the video because none of that ended up happening. I realized almost immediately after I filmed that plan for yesterday that I forgot I still needed to eat dinner that night, and in order to eat dinner I had to do dishes, I had to cook, I had to clean up after cooking, and so there was just not going to be enough time left in the day for me to even get to 4 hours. It wasn't even going to be humanly possible, and so I basically gave up that idea immediately after filming and decided that instead I would just do as much as I could. I ended up actually being pleasantly surprised at how much I did get done, because I thought I might not even hit 2 hours once I considered I had to do a bunch of around the house tidying stuff. And so the fact that I did end up getting 2 hours and 41 minutes done is pretty impressive to me, again, considering how late I started and the other stuff I had to do. So that was that. Then also I talked about all those different activities I can incorporate and stuff, and yeah, I didn't do almost any of them. I did a little bit of Japanese vocab review, a little bit of novel reading, and then I just got kind of sucked into the webtoon, and since I was motivated to keep reading and finding out the next part of the story in the webtoon, I just kept reading, and so I did basically an hour and 45 minutes of webtoon reading, and that was all I did for the entire day, those 3 things. And so yeah, definitely did not do all of those different varied activities that I mentioned yesterday, but today's goal is even higher than yesterday's goal somehow. I don't know what I did last Thursday and Friday. Apparently I just sat around and played games on my phone, because today's goal is from last Friday's game screen time, and it is 4 hours and 12 minutes. So basically all of those grand plans that I made for yesterday, I'm gonna kind of shift into today. Maybe some Japanese or Mandarin, maybe some of those new Korean reading textbooks, maybe some topic model essay analyzing, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna try again today to hit that high goal. I'm starting much earlier in the day. It's before 4 o'clock. Oh no, it's not. It's after 4 o'clock. It's about 4:15 in the afternoon. Normally I get off earlier on Fridays, but today we had a special social event, and so I actually ended up getting home later than I typically do on Fridays. And then I took a little bit of a nap break because I was so exhausted. But yeah, it's now around 4:15. I'm ready to jump into today's goal of 4 hours and 12 minutes. Today, hopefully I can actually achieve that much active studying. We shall see. All right, so Friday I ended up being successful. I got 5 minutes over the goal, so I got 4 hours and 17 minutes of studying done, which was great. A huge chunk of that was through this textbook, which I opened for the first time on Friday. I was very surprised by how high level this textbook was, or I guess you could say how weak my nonfiction reading is. Once I dove into the first chapter, which was on like the value of being filial and respecting your parents and that kind of stuff, and how it's changed throughout the centuries in Korea. And yeah, there's a lot of vocab that I didn't know about being filial, and so definitely was a tough read. It took me an hour and a half to read through it a few times and to look up all the vocabulary and to review the vocabulary on a Quizlet, and so I ended up not actually getting to the writing activities, which I had planned to like originally do the entire first chapter, so the reading and the activities in the back, but yeah, I decided to put off the writing stuff for another day because I was mentally exhausted after reading through such a high level for me, at least in this topic that I'm not familiar with. Yeah, obviously looking at this first reading, I have a lot of holes in my knowledge, and so I'm looking forward to going through this book and possibly the next one as well, and filling in some of the gaps in that knowledge and becoming a lot stronger, hopefully, in nonfiction reading. So yeah, that was that. And then also you saw that I ended the day with me kind of reading a webtoon in bed because I wasn't feeling great. And yeah, actually, as soon as I got home from work on Friday, my throat was already hurting a bit. I was being kind of hopefully naive that it was just from the fried chicken I had eaten, because the fried chicken was so crispy that it kind of roughed up the roof of my mouth as well. And so I was hoping, oh, maybe it also roughed up my throat and that's why my throat's hurting. But no, that was not the case. I was sick, unfortunately. And so by the end of the evening, I started feeling like my whole body being like, ugh, not great. And so that's why I was curled up in bed, just casually reading a webtoon, because that is a very light reading activity that is also interesting to me because I was kind of hooked on the plot by that point. And so by doing that, I was able to get to that time, 4 hours and 17 minutes, which is impressive looking back considering I was sick the entire time. But yeah, that sick feeling got much worse into the weekend. And so yeah, I decided to kind of not really focus on the challenge anymore because I was sick. Obviously, that the priority was not studying Korean anymore. And as it turns out, I got a test on Monday and it was COVID, actually. So yeah, I was very sick during the weekend. Now, I still managed to actually get some Korean stuff done, not because I was like pressuring myself to study languages, but just because I was bored while I was feeling terrible. And so I ended up actually finishing the webtoon throughout the weekend. On Saturday, I spent 1 hour and 42 minutes on the webtoon, and then on Sunday, I just finished up the entire thing and spent 2 hours and 48 minutes on the webtoon. So yeah, I ended up getting over 4 hours of Korean reading done on the weekend, regardless of being sick. Again, not because I was pressuring myself in any way, because again, this challenge was not the priority once I started feeling terrible, but just because, like I said, I was bored and just lying around at home and I was hooked on the story. And so it was a way to kind of distract myself from being sick. And, you know, looking back, yay, I ended up getting some Korean done, even though I was feeling terrible. So honestly, I was kind of bummed about ending the challenge that way because, you know, it's not a very exciting or satisfying ending to the week. And so I actually considered having like a sick makeup day where I could try to get the few missing hours that I was still missing from the week of screen time that I had originally set as my goal. But honestly, considering I still got some Korean reading done despite being sick, I kind of decided just to let the week be what it was and let the unfortunate ending be what it was as well. And yeah, at the end of the week, I ended up with a total of 22 hours and 16 minutes of studying. All of that was active studying. None of it was passive. I don't think that's ever happened before. So that was kind of an interesting development. I think because my goals were focused around active time, I was worried about getting invested in any sort of passive drama or show or anything and then not achieving my active goals because I was distracted by passive content. And so I ended up not doing anything passive. Even once I got sick, I did watch a lot of content. It was just English YouTube content and not other language content. The total screen time for the previous week that I was basing my goals off of was 23 hours and 21 minutes. And so at the end of the day, I was actually only 1 hour and 5 minutes off from that goal, which is also kind of impressive, I think, because that first day, because of the essay I was writing and the class I took and all that stuff, I was so far above my initial goal that even though the last few days I was, you know, subpar to my goal, I still ended up being very close to actually achieving that week's worth of screen time for games. And so I'm pretty impressed, all things considered. So yeah, that was my week of studying based on my mindless phone games screen time from the previous week. I will say the charts for this week are kind of boring, to be totally honest, just because it was all active studying. So there's no active versus passive breakdown. And it was almost exclusively Korean. So when you look at the overall language breakdown, it's also kind of boring. It's 94% Korean studying and 6% Japanese. So yeah, basically a week of Korean. If you look at the day-by-day breakdown throughout the week, you'll see that 4 of the 7 days I did study that little bit of Japanese, but again, it is primarily blue for Korean. And yeah, obviously I had 2 strong days, Monday and Friday, where I got over 4 hours of active study, which is quite impressive. And the other 5 days were fairly consistent. Even the last 2 days, like if you're just looking at this chart, I don't think it's super obvious that I was sick on those last 2 days, just because again, I did spend that binge reading time for the webtoon as I was curled up in bed feeling not so great. So yeah, I think even Sunday is higher than Thursday when I was actually trying to actively study. So that's interesting. But yeah, that is that. And again, I was only 1 hour off from the actual goal of the week because that Monday was so strong. So that's good there. And if you focus just on the Korean reading time, because going into this week, I was hoping to primarily focus on Korean reading stuff throughout this challenge, even though I obviously did other activities as well. But I would say I was very successful because out of that 22-ish minutes of time, I ended up getting 15 hours and 15 minutes of Korean reading activities done, which is obviously a big majority, and that is an average of 2 hours and 10 minutes per day, which is very high for me. So I'm very happy with that. Hopefully I can kind of continue that habit into the future. And if you break that 15 hours into further specific categories, that's 4 hours and 19 minutes of novels. The very first day I finished up this novel that I was rereading at the beginning of the year and ignored for 6 months and finally just now finished. And then as you guys saw, I jumped into this high school age book and have not read any more of it since I fell sick. So I'm still just over halfway through that. So that's the 4 hours-ish of novel reading I got. And then a whopping 9 hours and 6 minutes of webtoon reading as I went from episode, I think 10, all the way through the end, which was like 82 or 3 episodes. And so yeah, definitely got into that webtoon and was very hooked on it and enjoyed reading it. The unfortunate thing is, since then I've been kind of scrolling around on the Webtoons app and have not seen anything that caught my eye like that last one did. And so I'm kind of sad that I have not found another one that I can sink my teeth into, but I have marked a few as possible webtoons of interest. So we shall try giving a few of those a shot and see if I can get hooked into any of those as well, because honestly, being hooked in a good story is what, you know, makes the habit really easy to continue. And the final category was textbooks. I did a little bit of news in Korean reading on Newsday Tuesday, which was a fun activity, by the way. I think I might try to implement a few more, you know, self-designated Newsday Tuesdays from now on, because that was kind of a fun, focused day. So that was 20 minutes and then an hour and a half again on this reading textbook for a total of an hour and 50 minutes of textbook reading time. And for the textbooks, it was definitely much more of a close reading activity. Like I said, I spent an hour and a half just on 3 pages of this book. And so yeah, those were much more like analyzing every single word and looking up lots of things and rereading kind of stuff, whereas the webtoons and novels was more of just regular reading where I'm just reading it one time. The webtoons, I did look up all the unfamiliar vocabulary, but because it was just dialogue, there wasn't a ton of that. And so despite it being, you know, a look up every word kind of situation, it didn't take that long to do. And so it was much more of a regular reading experience. I can't think of the name for non-close reading. What do you call that? But anyway, so yeah, that was it for the reading. Like I said, 2 hours, 10 minutes per day. Very, very thrilled with that. But yeah, that is it for this challenge. Let me know what you guys think, what you guys did for the challenge, if you did anything, and if you guys get sick, do you try to do anything language focused? Obviously, like I said, healing and just being comfortable is the highest priority, but do you guys have any kind of comforting, light things that you like to still do to keep that language learning habit in your life, like watching a fun, comforting show or any other ideas like that? Let me know down below. But yeah, that's it for this week. I will catch you guys next time, and until then, annyeong.